The following podcast may contain adult language and conversations revolving around situations not suitable for immature audiences. Spoilers and general political incorrectness can often be expected, so listener discretion is advised.
They must be destroyed on sight!
Okay, we're back. They Must Be Destroyed on Sight, episode 81. I'm your host, Lee Russell, joined by my co-host, Daniel Harper. How are you doing, sir?
I am making it. The snow started this week. As of today, we got a couple inches of snow here in Michigan, and so there we go.
Only have one question for you, Daniel. Do you know what Mama likes?
I know lots of things that Mama likes, and I'm sure we'll talk about at least a couple of them today.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing two. One of them definitely is a lesser blaxploitation film, but we're going to be doing two female blaxploitation films. Initially, Daniel suggested Coffee and Foxy Brown, and then I suggested, hey, let's do two lesser-known ones, two maybe slightly less in quality ones first, and we'll build our way up to Coffee and Foxy Brown sometime in the future. Yeah, we're going to be doing.
It was a reasonable decision to not take on the giants first. I get that.
I wanted to give you a little bit more of a taste of the sort of female blaxploitation stars before we got on to Pam Grier awesomeness. But we're going to be doing Cleopatra Jones, and we're going to be doing TNT Jackson for this episode. But before we get into that, we do have two comments to get to. First off, from our friend Henry. He's come back to leave a comment after hiatus. Apparently he's playing catch-up. He said he just listened to our episode that Paul and I did on the Demons films. Goes on to say, Virgin Among the Living Dead is not a bad movie. And he insists that. He has an exclamation point right afterwards.
Just one?
Yeah, just one.
I feel like the maximum exclamation points at the end of declarative sentences like that. One is what you need. One emphasizes your point. More than that, and your credibility goes down. So I think that's the right choice.
I think the Oxford Dictionary would agree with you. And then afterwards, he's got ellipses. If you get the right version.
Oh.
He says, I apologize again for not specifying before I had you guys watch it all those episodes ago. The recent Blu-ray release has the good version. He says, as per recommendations, I have to renew my call for the Karnstein trilogy from Hammer. The first and third films are particularly good, as is the unofficial fourth installment. We'll definitely be getting into those at some point. I mean, lesbian vampires. I mean,
yeah, I'm on board with that always. Didn't we talk about Virgin Among the Living? I remember watching the French version that he recommended and saying, yes, this is vastly superior. This is the version we should have watched. But maybe he missed that episode. So
maybe there's even another version. I wouldn't be surprised. I honestly would not be surprised with all Franco's stuff, just chopped to pieces all over the place for years. He ends up with saying, and yes, I'm champing at the bit for more of Daniel's synopses. So there you go. You got another fan of your synopses. You and Mike Murphy both like them.
Yeah, well, that's because people actually appreciate it. When I do some degree of work for this podcast, which I didn't do today. I'm just reading off Wikipedia today because fuck it, I'm not doing any work today. But
yeah,
so I'm disappointing my two fans today.
Yeah, so. Although we agreed beforehand before we did this episode that we're going to take it a bit more casual than usual. We're not going to pull an M here or a fucking Nosferatu or something like that. I don't think, but.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to delve into the history of German expressionist cinema and the political rise of Nazism, talking about TNT Jackson and Cleopatra Jones.
Mike Murphy has a comment. He says, in regards to our Iron Eagle episode, he says, my favorite parts of this episode, in quotations, Jizz and Magic Negro. So there you go.
My two great contributions to that episode, as far as I'm concerned, was using the word jizz and magic negro. So I am fully on board with this.
Yeah. And I left a response to him on where he left it on the Facebook page. I am not surprised at all that those were his two favorite things in that episode. But
I mean, really, those might be the two greatest things I've ever done on this podcast to date. Was Reagan era jizz fantasies and calling out Lou Gossett Jr. as being the Magic Negro of the Iron Eagle film, or the first one anyway.
I think we've used the term Magic Negro at least 3 or 4 times this year on the podcast.
Oh yeah, I've used it. I mean, it's a standard. I mean, it's a standard thing. You say when there's a black man who magically helps the white protagonist to solve all of his problems. That's the standard thing, You might as well, we could call him a bagger of ants, I guess, But,
yeah, I was about to say at least we're using it with movies that are good, not Will Smith teaching Matt Damon how to golf.
Yeah.
I don't need that in my life. And CB Fall comes back with a comment on our Iron Eagle episode. Really terrible movie and an excellent podcast. So there you go.
That's kind of the go-to thing that we try to do a lot of the time with this podcast, is to just take terrible movies and then to talk about them entertainingly, but not in a douchebag, pretentious hipster way. I think that's what I try to do here, is to examine things that are bad, to tell you why they're bad, but not to mock them for things beyond the control.
Yeah, I kind of frown on the Mystery Science Theater kind of approach of watching movies to quite a degree. I'm not a big fan of that stuff as a lot of people are, but
well, it's just a little tired, especially in podcast form. I loved MST3K when I was a teenager, and I'll still sometimes watch. I mean, I've got my favorite MST3Ks I kind of pull up, and there's some great stuff when you have professional comedians, but there's a difference between a professional comedian kind of talking about something and kind of ribbing it in the and telling a really funny joke about it versus two douchebags on the internet just ripping into something that they don't understand. And that's what I feel like a lot of the commentary on stuff like what we're going to be talking about tonight is, look at how bad the kung fu is and that sort of thing. And then, but not have any kind of context to understand what it places or anything like that. And that's kind of where I land on it, So
yeah,
I'm feeling philosophical. I'm 4 beers in, by the way.
I'm on my second. Technically, it's probably my third, considering the coffee porter I had was a big bottle. So
sure. Yeah.
But we got no other really things to talk about. No stuff we watched this week. We're not going to bother with that. I don't think either of us have anything.
I did get to see Labyrinth on the big screen this week.
Oh yeah,
the Jim Henson, Terry Jones movie. One of Shannon's favorites, my wife's favorites. It was at the Alamo, and they did the action pack thing, so it's basically a quote along. You've seen the film, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're in the stinky swamp thing, and they give you whoopee cushions, so you're supposed to
okay, yeah.
Sort of thing,
I've heard Kevin Smith talk about this kind of interactive theater experience now with movies. If you go and watch a movie where there's snow on the screen, all of a sudden you'll actually have snow falling in the theater on your head and shit.
I mean, this is more it's a quote along, and they give you some little props to play with, during. They give you some instructions, and I mean it's a fun little experience for a movie that you've seen a bunch. That I kind of grew up with it. My wife just loves that movie, regardless. The thing that I kind of landed on was the Pit of Eternal Stench, or the Bog of Eternal Stench. I completely, until watching it this time, had no realization of the degree to which that really is just a 10-minute fart joke. I mean, that's all it is. And I'm kind of oh yeah, it's a stinky swamp, and it's got but no. It's little flatulence all the way through. And I hate that it took me until the age that I am to watching it go, oh, this is just one big fart joke, but it totally is. So, that was a lot of fun.
Well, that's really all that movie is puppets, fart jokes, and David Bowie's cock in 3D. I think that's pretty... and
jailbait Jennifer Connelly. You can't leave that element out of it.
Yeah, there's several key movies in the 80s that feature jailbait Jennifer Connelly, and they make me feel very uncomfortable.
My wife has been watching that 70s show this week. Just in the last couple of days because it's on Netflix. And then you look at it and go, Mila Kunis was 15 when she started on that show. And wow, that makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't feel so as uncomfortable when I first watched it in the first run because I was only 19 or 20 then. So, but
sure. I mean, but now I'm in my 30s and I'm like, oh God, Although I just love Mila Kunis anyway. So
yeah, she's she's nice to look at. I'd definitely say.
We got to put Forgetting Sarah Marshall on this list.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, put that in the next time we do the sex comedy series. That'd be a perfect fit for that. I will mention just a brief thanks to the projection booth. They actually ran our promo in their latest episode for Detour. We actually got a nice little upswing in listens and one confirmed subscriber. One new confirmed subscriber. So there you go.
Thank you to that one person. We do this for you. That's it. And I think we're going to do Detour at some point in the near future as well.
Yes, right? Definitely. I listened to that episode last night at work, and I was like, "Holy fuck! Why have I not heard of this movie?" So
that's the Noir from '46, right?
Yep. Apparently, fairly obscure and hard to get.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that actually. Yeah, because it has that like famous opening, which is windshield, the windshield wipers on the. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong movie. I'm pretty sure I've seen it, though.
Yeah. I'm definitely.
But it would have been like 10 years ago or something, so,
Yeah, definitely interested in doing that one.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of it.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was.
How
did
you watch this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Movies need only three things: badasses.
You tell me who you want done, and I'll do the hell out of it.
A chick with drive who don't take no jive.
Boobs.
Do you know that the female breast, known to be the source of life since Eve, can be deadly weapons?
And body counts.
Body count. The mathematics of murder and menace.
The BB and BC podcast is your source for exploitation film discussion of B movies. You can find the show on iTunes and Stitcher Radio by searching for BB and BC podcast. You can also listen to each episode directly from the show's website located at badassesboobsandbodycounts.com.
Let's go to work.
But yeah, we can move on now to our first film, and we're going to be talking about Cleopatra Jones from 1973.
Guess you jumped out of the wood pile.
If I ever hear of you selling so much as a cough drop, I'm coming down on you so hard.
Tamara Dobson, the Soul Sisters' answer to James Bond, and the most exciting new star in years. 6'2" of dynamite, and it's all stacked.
I told you where, and I told you when, and I told you how to get that. Cleopatra Jones. She is sticking her nose in my business, Zap!
And up against her is the archenemy, the female successor to Goldfinger. 2-time Academy Award winner Shelley Winters as Mommy.
Don't crowd me, boy.
You better put that down before I make you eat it.
Oh, I don't want this town to blow up.
Big deal. Just hang it right there.
Right on, sweet sister.
Man, that broad is 10 miles of bad road. For that black lady.
I'll take care of Cleopatra Jones.
Cleopatra Jones, starring Tamara Dobson. Co-starring Bernie Casey, Brenda Sykes, Esther Roll, and Shelley Winters as Mommy.
And with your love, oh honey, you shook me. That's what I call some extra heavy double duty stuff.
Directed by Jack Starrett, who you might actually recall from as being the cop in Rambo, one of the dirty cops, the one with the nightclub that tries to strangle Rambo in the police station. And he also directed Slaughter from 1972 and Race with the Devil from 1975. And he's done all kinds of other stuff, but that's sort of the prominent stuff you can recall from him. Written by Max Julian and Sheldon Keller. It is starring Tamara Dobson as Cleopatra Jones, Shelley Winters as Mommy, Bernie Casey as Reuben Masters, who you might remember from Revenge of the Nerds and basically every other movie that requires a black character actor.
He's also in The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Yeah.
Which is the other thing I remember him from.
Yeah, Antonio Fargas as Doodlebug Simpkins, who you'll know as Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch. He was also in Putney Swope and Shaft, too, other prominent roles for him. Brenda Sykes as Tiffany, Bill McKinney as Officer Purdy, Esther Roll as Mrs. Johnson, Dan Fraser as Captain Crawford, and Don Cornelius as himself from Soul Train. So there you go. And Daniel, I'll let you read off the synopsis for us.
Yeah, we're just going straight off of Wikipedia today, so my apologies. Cleopatra Cleo Jones is an undercover special agent for the United States government. Overseas modeling is only a cover for her real job. Cleo is a Bond-like heroine with power and influence. Her silver and black 73 Corvette Stingray, equipped with automatic weapons, and her martial arts ability. While she evokes the glory of a funk goddess, she remains loyal to her drug-ravaged community and her lover, Reuben Masters, who runs a B&S house, a community home for recovering drug addicts. The film opens with Cleo overseeing the destruction of a poppy field in Turkey, belonging to an evil drug lord, Mommy. Mommy employs an all-male crew and a bevy of beautiful young women catering to her many wants. When she hears about her Poppy's demise, she plots revenge, ordering a corrupt policeman to raid the BNS house. When Cleo returns to L.A. to arrest the police responsible for the raid, she continues to take apart Mommy's underworld drug business, thwarting her minions along the way. And Cleo and Mommy face off in a showdown, in which she is trapped by Mommy in a car crusher, but is saved by her friends from the BNS house. In the final showdown, Cleo chases Mommy to the top of a magnetic crane where the two women fight. Mommy proves to be no match for Cleo, who hurls Mommy over the side of the crane to her death, while Cleo's friends defeat her henchmen. At the end of the film, as Ruben and the members of the community celebrate victory, Cleo departs the scene. She sets off to complete her mission of stemming the tide of drugs that flow into her community.
One of the tried and true tropes of the blaxploitation genre is to stop people from bringing drugs into the community. What's your sort of initial thoughts on this one, Daniel?
I really liked this. This is so I did watch TNT Jackson first before I watched this, which might have influenced a little bit of when we get to TNT Jackson, we will discuss that. I loved Tamara Dobson, first of all. She's phenomenal in this. I love Bernie Casey. There's a little bit of a political angle with the racist cop planting of drugs on people and those sorts of angles. I kind of love the silliness of it, that she's like a member of this unnamed federal agency. She's just U.S. government. Like, I could make something that looks like that, and I could just kill people and then flash it. Like, no, I'm with the U.S. government. Go away.
This is a universe where if you have that, you only answer to the president, nobody else, basically. And
right, exactly. She has there's no higher authority, and she can just come in and just do whatever the fuck she wants.
Really, she exists in some sort of strange semi-totalitarian police state, really, if she's recognized as
Well, I mean, there's absolutely the kind of political reading where she's trying to save her neighborhood, and she's absolutely both a part of and kind of outside this neighborhood and this kind of black community, and is working under the auspices of the U.S. government. By the way, the U.S. government was in no way in favor of the kind of leftist black community in the 1970s. And so, I mean, there is this kind of sense of where you kind of feel like, well, the way this movie got made was they kind of made her an agent of the U.S. government, which is kind of a sore thumb that sticks out. And a little bit of a detriment to the film, except that it just makes it extra ridiculous. Also, her purview allows her to simultaneously destroy poppy fields in Turkey, about $30 million of the product, apparently, we're told, and also to just randomly police neighborhoods. So apparently she has no restraint on what she's allowed to do whatsoever. So she's kind of like Judge Dredd. She's Judge Dredd with a fro. Is kind of who she is. And I'm kind of a fan. Man, there's so much to just kind of love about this. There's a dirt bike sequence, and the car is kind of amazing. And Bernie Casey and the relationship she has with him. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I mean, I sat down and I just watched it, and it washes over me, and it just made me happy. And a great villain when Shelley Winters is Mommy, a problematic villain in a lot of ways, but also super fun to watch because she's basically not to put too fine a point on it, she's the Bull Dyke of the film. She's absolutely kind of surrounded with a bunch of beautiful, kind of conventionally attractive young girls who she just molests on a regular basis from what we see, and she's the bad guy. And there's some really interesting kind of feminist readings of some of this that we may or may not get into, but the Wikipedia page kind of summarizes pretty well, so I thought, I'd at least mention that. But
this is actually the second time I've watched it. I bought it years ago. I think it was around 2009-ish. I bought this. I bought all the Shaft films. It was around the same time I bought Black Dynamite, and I was trying to reacquaint myself to blaxploitation stuff I had watched and hadn't watched, and just see where all the sort of tropes came from that made Black Dynamite the sort of movie it is.
Sure, yeah.
And this is a lot like Black Dynamite because it's kind of a parody of blaxploitation films to a small degree.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on where it feels like it's kind of heightening everything to a fever pitch. It also feels to be a little bit higher budget. It feels like there's a little bit more money behind this than there are in a lot of other films of this kind of ilk. It has a little bit more scope, and that gives it just a sort of a sense of professionalism, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, well, this is very much like a female answer to Shaft, really. Like it's on that sort of same level, that same sort of upper tier kind of blaxploitation film to that sort of degree. Yeah. And like you said, it is a fairly progressive film as far as showing a strong female character who is equal and often superior to most of the males in the film, depending on what sort of alignment they are, whether they're good or evil or whatever, And it's interesting you mentioned how Shelley Winters' character is sort of problematic. I was kind of thinking maybe it still kind of reflects maybe sort of the black community's attitude towards homosexuality to a certain degree, how it hadn't quite maybe as progressed as much back then.
From an intersectional perspective, I mean, we'd absolutely just kind of say, look, they were totally on board with, the makers of this film were totally on board with sort of this kind of, leftist black politics, black power kind of stuff. That's very prominent in the film, which is great. But they were not quite as enlightened on, the roles of gay people, because there are basically two. There's not only Mommy, who feels very much like the inspiration of the mom character from Futurama, if you're familiar with that at all.
Yeah.
Feels very obviously like, somebody on the Futurama crew saw this. But you also have the kind of dandyish white butler chauffeur character.
Yeah.
From what's his name? Doodlebug?
Yeah, Doodlebug. Who speaking of Black Dynamite, you can see the direct influence for Cream Corn from Doodlebug, like exact same character basically, pretty much, except he's not a crime lord in Black Dynamite.
There's a lot of fun happening here. I feel like they're also kind of joking around, like the sequence where Cleo kind of walks in on the two brothers, and you think they're gonna fight for a second, and they just kind of like, low five, and it's like, all right, we're good. Don't worry.
Yeah, they just slap some skin because they instantly know, like they just have this sort of internal kind of communication, like, oh, she needs us for some shit. Let's get it on. And that's the thing. Like, you can definitely read a lot of sort of political and social stuff into this, but you really don't have to, because the film is so lighthearted and funny. It's a very populist kind of blaxploitation film where it doesn't take itself too seriously. The stuff is there if you want it. Basically, this is a comic book film. Like, I was watching it and I was just thinking,
it's James Bond. Actually, since we're talking, I was watching the first 10 minutes and going, this is basically a Third Doctor story if the Third Doctor was a black woman with a fro. Because you essentially got Unit going like, the British, intelligence guys, we're going to bomb the poppy fields, and she's like, yeah, do it, done, it's fine. And I'm literally like, yeah, this would be an excellent future model for the Doctor. I want to see that in Doctor Who. Is this kind of character? It would be great.
It takes all the sort of tropes of classic blaxploitation cinema and it puts them in there, but again, it is kind of a comedy, kind of a parody. It doesn't take itself super serious. One of the detriments is that Tamara Dobson's not really like an action star, really. Like her kung fu is pretty fucking weak, honestly. And one of these things for this film that I do have a bit of a problem with is that it seems like she's too good to be fighting the likes of Shelley Winters and her guys. She's got the James Bond thing going, right? She should be up against like someone who's trying to take over the world, not some lesbian drug pusher.
Not some hoodlum, essentially. Some person trying to take over a neighborhood. Yeah, I just kind of bought that as like, this is just one of the many adventures that we could see of Cleopatra Jones. Like this is, it feels like this should be like, we should have like a little 10 or 15 minute opening sequence where we see her like take down a big bad guy, and then this is her like coming back home and being like, oh no, I got to come back and take this down. And obviously we get the destruction of the poppy fields and stuff, but you feel like there should be like a big action sequence,
She's almost kind of like Buckaroo Banzai. Like Buckaroo Banzai feels that same way, where it's just part of a continuing series that you haven't seen the first few episodes of,
Right, yeah. No, I would absolutely kind of support an extended series. I know there's a sequel, and from reading, I think that people think the sequel is not very good, so I'm kind of okay with not visiting that right away. But super fun movie. There's a lot of great jokes. Again, the foppish chauffeur guy.
The butler.
butler, where he kind of walks in and what the fuck is he wearing?
This yellow suit,
yeah. This yellow like jockey suit essentially is kind of what he's wearing.
Well, it's funny because Doodlebug and his two thugs, they use him as sort of like a clown. They get off on the fact that they got this white guy working for them and catering to their every need.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a thing.
And you get the sense that he's this guy down on his luck too, because the last scene where they're in the car there and they get ambushed, he makes this reference, this passing reference to things weren't like this back in the RAF or whatever, so he's this ex World War II veteran who fallen on bad times, and now he's working for black gangsters,
What are you gonna do, man? The class system has its benefits. I don't know. There's totally a political reading on that, and I'm just not gonna get into it at all. But, no, it's kind of like I could see kind of sitting down at this in 1973 and just kind of letting it wash over me and just kind of loving this and having a lot of fun with it. I think a lot of the political dimensions come later, sort of like reinterpreting it through kind of a 21st century perspective, which for me just enhances the film. It just makes it more interesting, to kind of look at it through that lens, which I don't really want to talk about in this. Like right now, the last thing I want to do right now is to think about politics, given the events of the last couple of weeks. This is my escape from that. It's just a fun fucking movie. I love the lieutenant character who's just kind of in charge of the police, and then like she shows up, and it's like, oh god, now I got to deal with Cleo again.
Yeah, he has that one sort of throwaway line there at one point where have you ever felt? I don't think he says emasculated, but have you ever felt emasculated? Because every time Cleo walks in because of her special status as a secret agent and stuff, she gets to call the shots basically and tell him what to do, and he's okay with it. I mean, but she still feels the need to tell him.
Well, he's completely on board with like, look, she's way better than me at this, and she's gonna come in and like clean this up. It's gonna be great. I will mop up her messes. Things are gonna be great. There's also this thing of like whenever Cleo walks into a room and they're like, men, they're always attracted to her, but they always respect her, which I think is great, because like she gets a little like, I think the lieutenant there, he gets a little like kiss from her, like the little peck kind of thing, and it's just kind of like that's all it is. He even says at one point like, oh, you got a beautiful body, and she's just like, come on, dude, we got to move on, cut the crap. Let's
every man in the film, and actually rightly so, because Tamara Dobson's fucking gorgeous. Every one of them, they can't help. She walks by, they take a second look at her and go, "Oh, good to see you back in the community, Cleopatra." Miss seeing you around. Definitely, and everyone wants to help. Like it's got this sort of theme of black community solidarity, where everyone and all the good people in the community come together to push all the bad people out of the community. And I mean, Cleopatra Jones is so feared that Doodlebug, he don't want to fuck with her at all. Like he's like, he severs his ties with mommy like pretty much instantly. Like, oh shit, Cleopatra's back around and she's fucking with you. I'm out of here. I don't want no connection to this shit at all.
I mean, there is that kind of angle where, we are talking about like early 70s New York essentially, which was, crime was terrible in early 70s in New York, There's a lot of kind of nostalgia for that era in terms of how dirty it was, but also like people were being killed. Large numbers of people were being killed every day. And so to have these kind of heroines, these kind of characters to kind of come in and you said earlier, let's talk about a superhero film. She is a superhero who's coming in and cleaning up a neighborhood full of people that are, trying to harm people, trying to help people who are addicted to drugs and shit. There's a very kind of socially conscious element to this, and it feels very deliberate within the context of the film.
They try to be fair of all sides. Generally, that it shows even the police officers in general to be overall good. There's just like a couple bad apples in the pile that are, spoiling the rest of the bunch. I don't know how intentional it is, but it's almost kind of like reaching hands across the line or whatever to, try to bring everybody together.
You got to think with a movie with, this doesn't have a giant budget, but it's got enough of it. There's enough money behind it that clearly
it doesn't look cheap at all. Yeah.
Once you kind of have that, then it kind of has to like kind of toady to the establishment a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I would have enjoyed it if there had been a little bit less of a like good, the police are good kind of element to this, and if it had been a little bit more kind of overtly anti-establishment, but I kind of understand that it just kind of has to be what it is.
And I mean, you got to remember, like, a lot of, as much as people want to say, like, you know, blaxploitation films were for the black community and were about the black experience and stuff like that, a lot of them were made by, like, white Jews.
No. I mean, basically, you've got, like, you know, black actors and black, you know, you've got black people in a movie for black audiences, but who profits off of it? You know, white people.
Yeah, but at the same time, a lot of the stuff you'd see in these films were kind of sort of fantasy and like black wish fulfillment to a certain degree. So the idea of like a super cool black woman who can work within the establishment and not necessarily, actually, she just kind of runs the establishment when you think about it to a certain degree. Like that, that's still
no one in the film who is of a higher authority than Cleo.
Yeah, I mean that's still pretty cool. Like, and I mean that trope was even parodied in Black Dynamite, where Black Dynamite's an ex-CIA and all that shit, and they bring him out of retirement and stuff, even though he wants no part of the white man's game anymore and all this stuff. You know, like it's very much kind of a theme that runs through a lot of. I mean, even Shaft is kind of like that, where all the white cops and stuff know Shaft knows his shit and respects Shaft and fears Shaft, and Shaft, you know, he works with them sort of begrudgingly, but wants nothing to do with them at the end of the day. It's
right.
so it's like the black person calling their own shots at the end of the day is sort of the theme.
Which is a really, I mean, particularly in the early 70s, was a really powerful like image, and I mean, just having a film that, you know, is so focused on sort of black issues is really, I mean, that's really what blaxploitation was for the black community. It's like, regardless of how problematic some of this is, and regardless of, you know, kind of the film quality, just seeing these kinds of heroes in this kind of vein and talking about issues that matter to us, that mattered, you know.
Yeah.
And one thing I think we're kind of wrapping up on Cleo Jones a little bit, but I would highly recommend this film to anybody who watched Luke Cage and didn't quite get it. Because this is definitely, like, once you watch this, and because my wife had kind of watched the first half of this with me, because I watched this twice this week, because I actually didn't enjoy it that much, but I watched a little bit of it, and my wife watched it and was like, oh, I kind of like, she already loved Luke Cage, but it was definitely this totally makes Luke Cage make a lot more sense in terms of the structure and the pacing and, you know, kind of the way that the things work. And it's like, yeah, no, that's completely, I mean, you know, the Luke Cage series is very much a kind of merger of superhero, blaxploitation, and, you know, crime novels. you know, those three things, you know, so.
I gotta say, like, Tamara Dobson, even though she only had really did very little acting. She only had a couple roles after this, and she does a great job.
She knocks it out of the park. I mean, I think she's the mesmerizing thing to watch in the film, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, just looking at her, I mean, she's just phenomenal. You know,
yeah, and
she's not asked to do that much, like, as an actress. I mean, you know, it's not, but she's a star. She's got that star quality, and there is that kind of thing when you see somebody like this and go, like, had it not been for the fact that she is unapologetically black, you know, had it not been for the fact that not only is she black, but she's fairly dark-skinned for a black woman, and she has an afro. I mean, and she's wearing, like, black clothes, you know, so they make no effort to kind of make this palatable for white audiences. And I wonder to what degree that really is just kind of like, it just kind of killed her in terms of, like, really expanding or having a career outside of the, you know, a handful of these kinds of films, you know, because she's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say. I mean, I don't even know if maybe she was even interested in pursuing acting as much after this. I don't know, but originally her role was actually written for Vanetta McGee, who we know from The Great Silence, who was the girlfriend of Max Julien at the time. Because Tamara Dobson was taller, she actually got the role, made her more statuesque and more imposing. So she's
6'2".
Yeah. So, you know, nice. And so, yeah, this was followed by the sequel, Cleopatra Jones and the Casino of Gold from 1975. I haven't seen that yet either, honestly. I haven't heard great things, although it's got Stella Stevens in it, who I like. So I'm going to have to check that out.
Time to put that on a list then. We'll check it out at some point.
Apparently, the box office for this by the 5th week, that's the best I can come up with for box office on this. It was $400,000 in ticket sales, and eventually it gained about $3.2 million in rentals. So you got to think this did pretty well. I mean, the budget looks pretty good for this, but it couldn't have been more than a couple million, really, at that point.
Yeah,
in 73.
Wikipedia says $3.5 million. What?
Yeah, for rentals.
Okay, Wikipedia is untrustworthy. I can't believe that because it has a line that says budget and then 3.2 million and then U.S. Canada rentals, i.e., somebody was copying and pasting and not understanding.
Yeah. So. But yeah, I like this one. I even like the soundtrack's very pretty decent. It's just sort of a typical kind of R&B kind of blues soundtrack. It's not necessarily as standout as like Shaft and stuff like that. But
I didn't leave the film like humming it, but I enjoyed it while it was on. You got a cool little girl group there towards the end, and you've also got the kind of fun. I always love watching films of this era because they have the intro theme, which is kind of your hero's theme, you know. The title theme is like, oh yeah, Cleo Jones is badass, which always makes me think of the old 50s westerns. So there is this kind of like I always feel like a film like High Noon and a film like this are very much in this. They're working on the same template.
Yeah.
Which I think is a kind of a really the way to kind of walk into this, where I mean it does work as a sort of let's introduce a hero, let's put them through a situation, and then we get a happy ending, and that's kind of what the film is. But instead of talking about like the Old West and cattle rustlers or whatever, you've got drug dealers in New York City.
Yeah. But I think we're both in agreement. This is a really good one to check out. I would highly recommend if you're a fan of like Black Dynamite, do this in like a double feature because they're very much on the same wavelength. It's just like Black Dynamite's a sort of a homage parody of like a really terrible version of one of these films. And Cleopatra Jones is actually like the really good version of one of those films. So It's a good contrast and comparison, I think. So we're well worth checking out.
Highly recommended. Really highly recommended.
Now we're going to move on to TNT Jackson from 1974.
TNT Jackson, black bombshell with a short fuse.
The name is Diana Jackson. TNT to you.
This hit lady's charm will break both your arms. She's a one-mama massacre squad.
She fights as good as any man I've ever seen. She should be eliminated.
I love your style. A super soul sister and a bad news brother. Undercover, out to blast the killer army that's poisoning the people with deadly China White.
I want in on the next delivery, but I want to pick my own men. I want to form a squad of the finest fighters in this city.
You dirty black bastard.
Take care of your business and then get out of here. You know, this isn't exactly a safe place.
You best beat her fine or she'll shatter your spine.
I love that.
Black Chinatown, where flesh is cheap and life is cheaper. And the Red Dragon rules. TNT Jackson. She'll put you in traction.
Directed by Sergio H. Santiago. If you look at his IMDb, and I've seen some of his films that he's done, he has done everything from Z to about B-grade exploitation action cinema. He's got over about 100 credits or something like that.
Wow.
Directorial alone.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list now, yeah.
Yeah. He's done a lot of stuff. Written by Dick Miller. Yes, that Dick Miller. and Ken Metcalf, and is starring Janine Bell as Diana TNT Jackson, who you might actually know from Mean Streets, and she actually had a small role in Cleopatra Jones as well. I think she's that chick that accosts Cleopatra Jones at the stairwell or whatever, like, oh, you're back in the community. What have you done for the community lately? You know, kind of shit. I think that's who that was.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, she was uncredited in that film, and it's got Chiquito as Dynamite Joe Wong, who also has quite a storied career in cinema as well. I think he's got about almost 300 credits or something. Stan Shaw, who you'll probably know from, again, every movie that needs a black character actor. I know him from the Monster Squad the most, but Stan Shaw as Charlie, Pat Anderson as Elaine, and Ken Metcalf, who is also, again, the writer, as Sid. I'll let you get into the synopsis for this one, Daniel.
Sure. We're going to, again, read from Wikipedia. This is very long and detailed, so I apologize. The film is about Diana Jackson, a.k.a. TNT, who learns her brother is... She suspects a powerful gangster and his friends are behind the disappearance. Determined to get at the truth, she goes to Hong Kong and, along with a friend named Joe, wages war on the criminal gang she's out to nail. Also, she shows her breasts a few times.
Yeah.
That last sentence was my addition to the Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
That's just to kind of add a little bit extra. There's a lot of story here. There's a lot of kind of double crossings involving some people who are cops who kind of are maybe dirty and maybe not, and then there's a kind of people kind of all coming after her and doing all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of plot. There's no real story here. I watched it twice. I could not follow Bihu at all in the film. And there's a lot of chopsocky style martial arts, a lot of kung fu. And that's the reason to watch the movie and for our lead actress. That's about it.
This is a Roger Corman New World Pictures cash-in on the blaxploitation genre. You know you're going to get... Roger Corman asks his advisors, what are in these films that sell? Well, a lot of these blaxploitation films have a lot of fighting in them, all right? They have a lot of black lingo in them. Okay, check. They have a lot of nudity in them. All right, we'll put that in. They have a lot of racial epithets and all kinds of other fun stuff like that. Okay, we'll stick those in there. All right, make me a movie and make it under budget. And so that's exactly what you get here. This is very low budget, very full of plot, like you said.
It feels like they're full of plot because they like dialogue scenes are cheap. More so than, like, there's an actual interest in creating plot. And this is probably because, like, the actors... I mean, none of the actors are very good in this, and let's just...
I'd say Stan Shaw is actually pretty good in this.
I said it, and then I was withdrawing from the blanket statement, because I actually like the lead a bit as well. What's her name? Jean Bell. I thought she was...
okay, well, I'm gonna fight you on that, because I didn't like her at all.
I kind of land on... If you ask me to carry a film, I would do worse than she did. And that's
okay.
That's kind of
you're not a black Playboy Playmate of the month though. So
no, I am not, and she is fucking gorgeous, by the way.
Yeah, she is. Yeah,
and maybe that kind of carried me through the film, but
that is what is supposed to carry you through the film, I think.
And that's fine. I've got no problem with that. There's a lot of kung fu in this, and I don't know. It's sort of it feels cheap, but it also like you can tell the difference between when they've got like stunt people kind of doing some of this when you got the leads. Oh wait, now we're cutting from above or we're from a distance.
Oh, it's totally totally
difference in terms of the quality of the kung fu.
It's totally the Star Trek stunt double kind of thing for Captain Kirk in the fight scenes, where all of a sudden the angle's from high above and his back is to the camera at all times, kind of thing. It's very much sped up jump cut fu at its finest, because there are so many jump cuts and just sped up undercrankings. There's some slow-mo stuff going on here.
There are a lot of jumps. I mean, I feel like TNT Jackson just jumps at people. Like, she just kind of wanders off and then needs to fight and then just jumps on them.
Yeah, she jumps back into frame and hits people. It's like...
There's a lot of that. I will say I really admired, and this is a silly thing to admire, I really admired Jean Bell's use of her hands in the fight sequences, you know? Like, you kind of get she does these kind of weird hand things where she's, like, curling her fingers in this way. It just looks badass. Like, I understand, like, that's in no sense realistic, but it's just kind of fun to look at. So I forgave a lot just because I kind of liked Jean Bell. Like, I kind of felt she looked like she knew Kung Fu, except when she had to throw any kind of punch or anything.
Every time she finishes somebody off, she's immediately in a stance where her fingers and her hands start moving, and she's looking like about, not quite 360, but she's looking everywhere for someone new to hit, and there's no one around, but she's looking anyway. She's determined to hit anyone who's around her, and This is I think
my favorite bit of this episode so far, by the way, Lee, is the fact that both you and I, in describing this to our audio audience, have attempted to do the moves with our own hands. This is really one that should have been a video podcast,
Oh god, yeah. Honestly, my biggest problem with this film actually is Janine Bell. Because she's a fucking bitch. She's a prick, man. She is a fucking prick. Like, her brother went missing and was killed. Okay, boo-hoo, I get that. But she's a dick to everybody. She's a fucking dick to every... The first time she meets up with Elaine, she just starts giving her the fucking runaround. Like, fuck you, white bitch. I don't want to fucking listen to anything you have to say. The first thing Elaine does is offer her a fucking ride out of the fucking bad part of town. And the first thing she does is like, fuck you, bitch. I don't want to hear anything you have to say to me. I'm just getting a ride from you. That's all.
To be fair, we later learn that she's a cop. And so, like, therefore,
Yeah, it's got that, you can't trust cops. But, I mean, come on. Elaine's actually probably... Elaine and Joe are the two best characters in the film. Like, honestly, I wanted this film to be about Elaine at the end of it. I wanted her to be the one who wins. She just dies a senseless death. She runs at the main bad guy and goes out the fucking window just because can't have the white chick standing next to the black chick at the end of a blaxploitation film. That's what it felt like to me.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with that. And you're right that I don't think that it's Jean Bell's fault as much as it's the script doesn't give anybody any kind of motivation.
That too. But I mean, come on.
I'm not going to say, she's a great actress. I'm just saying I found her believable enough in this very stupid movie to,
Yeah, I mean, she's all right, but she's written to be an asshole. I think whether it's intentional or not, she comes off as an asshole in the film. And I was like, I'm not rooting for her. I'm actually rooting for Elaine. Like, once you learn that she's an undercover cop, it's like, okay, that's actually an interesting story. TNT Jackson, she just wanders around from like fight scene to fight scene. She doesn't really do much other than that, She's almost like a sledgehammer, this thrown through the plot.
She's kind of the enforcer character. Like, you can almost see like because it's kind of like, I grew up in Harlem and my dad, what was it? Her dad was a black belt or something like that.
Yeah. Her foster father taught her a few things to defend herself, and she's like this fucking world-class martial artist who can beat like these Asian martial artists who've been doing it their entire lives.
Well, it's just because, she's our protagonist. I mean, you don't get the nickname TNT without being pretty badass.
I guess, yeah. Maybe Black Dynamite trained her back in the day or some shit. I don't know, but I kind of feel like
we lost the opportunity here where TNT should have been like initials or something. It should have been Tamara something. So it's that way. Oh, that's why she's named TNT. They just call her Diana, and it's like, come on, we lost. There was a pun here that we should have made.
Yeah, it should have been like Tamara Nubian something. I don't know. But fucking, I just watching this, and like I said, Stan Shaw is really good in this. And there's hints of this as well. I would have made this movie, it wouldn't have been a blaxploitation film anymore, but I would have made this movie as Elaine as the lead, and her as the undercover cop. And there's this scene where she's flirting with Stan Shaw. That's a much more believable and interesting story than TNT Jackson walking into Stan Shaw's life, and he don't know her from shit. He's just, all of a sudden, he's like going along with, I'm going to let her get into my inner circle in this drug trade that we're doing or whatever, and I'm just, going to make excuses for her all the time. Like, I don't buy it all that Stan Shaw is all of a sudden whipped by TNT Jackson walking into his life. It doesn't work for me. But the idea of
she is Jean Bell. I mean, there is.
Yeah, well, she's great looking, but I mean, story structure wise,
no. It is. I mean, no, but like to hang your hat on that is like, well, that element doesn't make any sense. None of this makes any goddamn sense.
Yeah, okay. I'm just saying, in a better film, it would be Elaine as the undercover cop romancing Stan Shaw to get to the drug lord. And
you could even still do the blaxploitation film. You just give TNT Jackson like that role, where, I mean, basically you turn it into Cleo Jones, right?
Yeah, that's what it becomes.
She's an undercover cop, like, oh yeah, and then you just take all the plot elements from Cleo Jones and you just insert it into TNT Jackson, and TNT Jackson becomes a marginally better film. Yeah, this is pretty bad. I watched it once, and then today watched it again on high speed just to kind of get another like glimpse at it. Much more tolerable at high speed, I will say.
Yeah, I will say I do enjoy, like, some of the kung fu stuff gets better at the end.
It's way better at the end. There's a lot more kind of fun stuff happening.
There's some pretty hyper violent shit in this too. Like early on, she breaks one dude's arm, and it just like she breaks it so severely that this big spray of blood comes out of his fucking elbow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not just a break. It's like a hanging chad of an arm.
Yeah. And I like how she at the end there she just punches through the dude, and then it almost feels like an Italian film because it directly ends right after that. It's just like, yeah. It's over. TNT Jackson killed the dude. It's over. No.
Denouement is not something we need in films like TNT Jackson. You know, like rising action climax, done. It's over.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised early on in the film, like TNT Jackson, she just to prove that she walked into the bad part of town in Taiwan or wherever the fuck she goes to.
It's supposed to be Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, is it? Okay. She walks in there, and first thing she sees is this rapist trying to rape this woman, and this guy goes
to walks right by.
This guy goes to try to save the woman, and the rapist beats up the guy trying to save the woman, and then chases after the woman who's run off. It's like, whoa, okay, yeah, this is a bad part of town.
Yeah. That's how bad this is. I almost thought I was watching a Serbian film or something.
Yeah. Although, no one was raping their family in this one, thankfully.
Yeah, that's fair. You did get the line in this. I've never made it with a chink. So that's.
Or when she's giving Elaine shit. I do all my business standing up, not on my back, and she's like, "Oh, really? I never tried it that way before." I like
some good lines in this.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some pretty good like little lines of dialogue where it's like, yeah, my favorite little bit is just when Elaine just calls her bitch, like a bitch.
No, I mean Elaine. I champion Elaine in this film. She's the real hero in this. Like, she doesn't take this bitch. She doesn't take her shit. She throws it right back at her, and she's actually evenly matched as far as kung fu goes. She just unfortunately gets her head smacked into the side of a concrete wall more by mistake than anything else. I mean, I was rooting for her to beat the fuck out of TNT Jackson, honestly, because I was like, tell that bitch where to fucking go. She's just walking into fucking Hong Kong, telling everyone to fuck off and bow down to her. And it's like, no, I got an undercover sting to fucking work, and you're fucking it up. So, yeah. Elaine's my hero in this film, and I'm still kind of pissed off that she just recklessly and makes no sense at all other than we have to get this character out of the film, jumps through the window with the fucking crime boss at the end, like, who is the most ineffectual crime boss, boring crime boss ever. It's like Ken Metcalf is like, I'm going to write myself in this film, and I'm not going to write any good lines for my character.
I'm just going to put myself in this, but I'm not going to do anything like interesting with it. I'm just going to be there.
Yeah. Apparently he did, I think, the rewrite of this script. It was originally Dick Miller wrote it, and then Roger Corman brought on Ken Metcalf to rewrite it, and maybe he paid him by letting him be in the film, I guess. I do know that Ken Metcalf actually worked with Santiago in like more and more films after this, so there was some sort of collaboration there.
Apparently it was a good working relationship. This was the beginning. It just wasn't a very good beginning.
Yeah.
So,
although strangely enough, this was the film that sort of put Santiago on the map, though. Like, this was the first one that got him real notice. Of course, it helped that he was pairing up with Corman and all that. Apparently the box office for this was $1.3 million. So that must be a major fucking return, because this looks like it was made for like $50.
This film is in the public domain now, which I'm just going to say, like, you can't actually watch a really shitty version of this on the Internet Archive if you are desperate.
If you want to, though, and this is what I'd recommend you do, look for the Lethal Ladies collection from Shout Factory. It also has Firecracker from 1981 and Too Hot to Handle from 1977. It's a triple feature. That was this sort of Corman collection that was released by Shout Factory over the last few years, and that's probably your best DVD bet. Other than that, you're just going to get what you find on YouTube or on the Internet Archive, pretty much. So
yeah, the version on the Internet Archive looks like it was shot from a handheld camera in a theater. The version on YouTube is better. That's the version I watched, but it's still a really kind of crappy print.
Yeah. Like that's the print I have on one of my Mill Creek collections. Same exact one. So even then, like the Corman collection from Shout Factory, it's definitely restored. But even then, the sort of source materials they had weren't the greatest. But it still looks just like 10 times better than what you're going to see here. So if you're really interested in seeing TNT Jackson in its best form, you want to go for the Lethal Ladies collection.
Yep. No, I'd go with that.
Yeah, you know what? I would still recommend watching this one, honestly, because it is kind of fun. It's not a good movie at all. I won't try to fucking trick anyone into thinking it's a good movie. But if you're interested in blaxploitation with female protagonists, this is the one I would tell you to start with, and then work your way up to the better ones, and just get a full kind of idea of how the genre sort of progressed. You know, it's
sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I get that, and I'm probably a little bit more forgiving of Gene Bell than you are, and the kind of, I mean, I just basically just don't pay attention to the plot at all. Just don't. Basically, just watch it at low volume. Don't just listen. Watch the faces. It'll be fine. Forget what like trouble writing it is, except for like a few good lines, and just move on.
Well, I definitely like looking at her. I just don't like her acting all that much, or her character. But I did enjoy that scene where she's fighting the goons in a room, and she turns the light off and takes her shirt off, so she's totally black and no one can see her.
Exactly. I mean, it's actually a pretty nifty little scene, honestly. I mean, we're kind of like poking fun at it, but I was like, oh yeah, and then she turns the light off, and there's some like chopsocky kind of stuff happening, and then like they turn the light on, and she turns it off again. I mean, there's a nifty little thing going on there. I mean, it definitely feels like, okay, somebody thought 10 minutes ahead, not a full day ahead where you'd normally think in terms of like shooting a movie, but somebody thought more than 30 seconds ahead when they were filming.
There was a script rewrite like 30 minutes before they shot the film, and
no, that was probably my favorite scene in the film, honestly. Because that comes right after, the Chinese gangster is like gonna burn her breasts with a cigar, and then decides against it, and then kung fu. So
yeah, kung fu. Yeah, you fucked up, dude. You should have burned her when you had the chance.
you decided that this woman was going to fuck you. Like this was basically dumbest gangster ever, right?
Well, she did fuck him, but just in a different way. Boot fucked him, basically. But yeah. All right, Daniel, tell people where they can find you. All the recent sort of podcasting goodness you've been doing.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Daniel E. Harper. You can find all my podcasts. I have a bunch of them. I've been a little bit out of the podcasting loop for a little bit lately, but you can find me at oispaceman.libsyn.com. That's oispaceman.libsyn.com. I do a Doctor Who podcast. I do a Red Dwarf podcast. I do a lot of other stuff kind of that goes in that feed. So go check me out there. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And I do write sometimes at a Ruditorum Press. I've been a little bit out of that. This fucking election has just completely taken all of my ability to do creative projects away. But I'm getting back into it. So there you go.
Yeah, right on. And of course, you can find us at tmbdos.podbean.com, where you can find our iTunes, YouTube, and our Facebook links. Best place to find us is our Facebook group where you can get in contact with us. So look for They Must Be Destroyed on Sight on Facebook. Join up. No assholes there. It's just a lot of good conversation every once in a while, and it's the best place to get your comments read and responded to. That's the primary place where we look. And I'm not sure what next week's going to bring. I'm not sure how I'm going to drop episodes the next couple of weeks. Potentially, it's going to be Night of the Creeps and Halloween 3. That is a suggestion from Paul. He wants to do those ones. So that's probably what we're going to be recording next week. And who knows when that shows up. But that's kind of where we're at right now. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Or not watching, listening. You're listening. You're not watching. Unless you have some sort of secret cameras where you're looking at our webcams right now or we're recording.
We've been hacked by the Russian government.
Yeah, Putin. Putin is really interested in our podcast. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Daniel. And we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Nice to be here. Always.
Thank you for listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For past episodes, links to the host's other stuff, and links to various podcasts and websites of similar interest, please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. There you can also find our iTunes, YouTube, and Facebook links. Please join our Facebook group, as this is the best way to get in contact with us and to keep up to date with what's coming up on the podcast. We also can be found as part of the Oi Spaceman family of podcasts at oispaceman.com, where you can find various sci-fi themed podcasts about Doctor Who, Red Dwarf, Firefly, and classic sci-fi novels. If you decide to subscribe to us through iTunes, please take a moment to leave us a star rating and a review. Thank you. Drive through.